All right, so Michigan lawmakers have, at the last minute, as they always do, came to a compromise to pass new laws for paid sick time and also for minimum wage laws within state of Michigan. Now, I'm going to be going over some specifics for sure, but this is going to have an impact not just in Michigan because there's other aspects which we're going to cover, but I'm going to be sharing this information with my clients who are around the country as well because the changes that they're putting into place and the way that they negotiated this out, especially the way that our Supreme Court came to it, you're going to see a lot of this make its way into other parts of the country as well. And again, with that, some of this is already kind of in place elsewhere, but you're going to see this. It's going to move other legislatures, and it's going to inspire the groups that are going to be petitioning for legislative change. It's going to inspire them to push harder in other states. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. For those that don't know, I'm a business coach that works out of West Michigan and around the country. And I share live information I share with my clients every single day. And I hope to earn your subscription today. So let's get into this here. Again, links to the articles we're going to discuss are in the description. So be sure to check those out. Now, this is from the Detroit News. Excuse me real quick. All right, sorry. Like I said, this cold just will not go away. I don't know if any of y'all have had this, whatever virus is going around, but man, this thing just will not leave me alone. It's crazy. All right, anyways, back to this. Michigan lawmakers make 11th hour changes to paid sick time minimum wage laws. This is published again last night, but it's been updated as of this morning. And we're going to go through a couple articles here, one with more of a narrative, and then we're going to get into some of the details. And then I'm going to share the stuff that I'm going to be advising my clients as well. So, less than an hour before a midnight deadline, Michigan legislature approved Thursday night a bill to grant businesses an array of changes to looming requirements that they broadly provide employees paid sick time. The votes came as state lawmakers were rushing to send Governor Gretchen Whitmer, old Gretch, a bill scaling back some provisions of the sick time benefit requirements after advancing legislation to the governor's desk earlier that evening that cancels a large increase in the hourly minimum wage for workers who receive tips that was set to go in on Friday. A lot of word salad there, folks. But what this really means is that what we had planned has been upended, and now we've got some new stuff in there. The changes represented a compromise between the Democratic-led Senate and the Republican-controlled House. GOP leaders touted that the bills would keep the lower tipped wage in place for restaurant workers, while Democrat leaders emphasized that all the businesses would be required to offer some paid sick time, with many having to allow workers to collect up to 72 hours or 9 days of annual paid time off per year. There's not a single state in the union that has paid sick time of 72 hours for businesses over 10 employees. Senate Floor Leader Sam Singh from East Lansing. The closest is at 56 hours, so that is a fundamental part that was kept here. The moves on Thursday capped at least temporarily a 7-year battle. It's been a long battle here, folks. This has just been something they've been after for quite some time. And all of this has been spurred into place by last year. July 31st, Michigan Supreme Court ruled the two measures were scheduled to take effect Friday, with minimum wage for tip workers were set to immediately jump from $4.01 an hour to $5.99 an hour, and with all businesses mandated to begin allowing employees to accrue sick time, paid sick time, at the rate of 1 hour of leave for every 30 hours worked. So they've been racing to get that because the business community wasn't sure how they were going to be able to function with these mandates in place. And to that, again, we're going to talk a little bit more about what I talk with my clients. But here's the thing, and this is where you hear from the employees, and I think it's a valid point. Whether or not there's things you have to work around, and I understand from the business side of this. But if your business requires your working model to pay people less than what the minimum wage is, there's an issue with your business model. And I hear that from a lot of employees. The thing is that these businesses and business owners, they design their businesses under the current rule sets that are out there. And a change, in this case, going from $4 to $6 an hour directly, that's a 50% increase in labor costs overnight, roughly, give or take. And that's awful difficult for employers to absorb immediately. So I understand where the employers are at, and I also understand with the employees, and I get it. So, and again, this is what happens when you have the government involved in this, is that they're you're going to have decisions made in a blanket type environment that are very challenging for people to make work at the micro level. So anyways, all right. So let's get into some more stuff here. They talk about I want to get into this piece here. Look at this guy. Look how happy he is. Look at this guy. Good old Matt Hall, Richmond Township. Look how happy he is. They're doing legislature stuff. Look at him there. Now, under the original proposal, the Supreme Court instituted language employees of large businesses would be allowed to use up to 32 employees of large businesses would be allowed to use up to 72 hours of paid sick time each year. And then small businesses that had 9 or fewer employees could get up to 40 hours. The new deal, and this is where it's at. Availability of 32 hours of unpaid time for employees of small businesses would also eliminate provisions that specifically granted workers the ability to bring a civil suit under the law if their employers violated the sick time requirement, and a legal presumption of a violation. Changes sought by business advocacy groups. All right, so we're going to go to a different, we're going to switch over to a different article in a second, but I want to just dive into that because that's an important piece here where the businesses were absolutely pushing against that. So there was a provision in the previous law that allowed basically workers to bring a civil suit against their employer if they felt that they had violated it. And per the way that the law was written, if the civil suit was brought, it was presumed the business was already violating the law. So you had to prove that you didn't. And basically, the business owner was having to prove a negative, that they didn't violate the law. All right, that's where you see a lot of those changes came in, where you're inherently doing something illegal. Like, that was the idea. And that's why you see a lot of the pushback on that. Again, it is what it is. You take whatever you want. I'm not a big fan of that personally, be it on the employee side or on the employer side, to be quite honest. There has to be a burden. The burden of proof that someone is violating law has always got to be on the accuser. It's got to be there. That being said, when it comes to business owners, you got to also be very transparent on what you're doing here. Okay, so we are going to take a look here, and this is from Click on Detroit site. They did what I would have loved to seen in the previous one. They just broke this down into the different pieces. Let's see if I make this a little bit bigger here. I'm not sure. There you go. That's a little clearer to see. So here are the deets. This is the summary version of what's going on here. Pair of bills that impact hundreds of thousands of Michigan workers, their pay and their health, now, again, are on their way to Governor Whitner, which she signed those in. All right, the new minimum wage and paid sick leave laws will take effect Friday, February 21st. Lawmakers have been racing, so here's what we got. The paid sick leave bill defines a small business as an employer with 10 or fewer employees. Small businesses, okay, so now we know that. Listen, so it's, again, 10 or fewer. Small businesses will be required to provide 40 hours of paid sick time, and that's compared to 72 hours for all their employees. It would allow small businesses to implement the law by 1 October, so by October 1st this year. In new businesses, you get a 3-year grace period to be able to implement this. Now, workers would be required to provide a 7-day notice for foreseeable absences, which was an important piece that they're asking for, which we're going to get into. Employees would have to provide notification as soon as practical for unforeseeable absences. Okay, so there's very particular language in there. And part of this is that they are now providing the businesses, they now have to identify and clarify exactly what as soon as practical means. Okay, that's a big piece of this. But it was a little chewy in here, folks, so let's get through this. Now, next is going to be the minimum wage bill, which aims to halt, blah, blah, blah. So the bill calls for a tipped minimum wage to remain at 38% of the standard, basically 38% of the standard minimum wage this year, and it was rise annually, topping out 50%. Topping out at 50%. Now, that change was by 2030, it was supposed to be 100%. There was going to be no more tipped wage, wasn't going to exist. Now they've got it where it's 50% by 2031. Now, under the legislation, Friday's standard minimum wage will rise to $12.48. So let's find out. Just do some math here, folks. So it's at $12.48 times, and so the minimum wage is 38% of that, so we're going to times 0.38. All right, so the tipped minimum wage in Michigan is going to be $4.70. I'm sure they'll round up $4.75 as of today. Okay, that's where it's going to, and it's going to raise to 50%. So like right now, let's look at this here. We've got the raise is going to be $15 an hour. Oh, I can do that math in my head. What am I doing? I don't need a calculator for that. But it will raise to $15 an hour by 2027 instead of 2028. So basically, if they don't raise the minimum wage after 2027, by 2031, the tipped minimum wage will be $7.50, right? Because they'll be at 50%. That's where it's at. Okay, so let's, and then the restaurant industry has expressed approval while the labor groups have expressed discontent, viewing as a betrayal of the workers, which leads me to what's going to end up happening here. So let me bounce back here to the wider screen. So overall, this is what we're dealing with in Michigan. It's the compromise you're typically going to get out of some sort of legislation like this. It's just going to happen. And so how is this going to affect overall businesses? Well, one, businesses all have to provide some level of paid sick time. Right now, it's currently looking like if you're less than 10, you're going to have, you will have to have 40 hours of paid sick time. Okay, that's going to have to happen, and then in the larger ones, going to be 72. So that's going to be 9 days off versus 5 days of paid sick time have to be credited to the employees for small businesses, which are less than 10, and 9 days of sick time have to be provided for the larger companies. That's where it's at. Now, the small businesses, for the larger businesses, that has to be done right now. As of today, that has to be implemented. So anyone that is over 10 employees, as of today, you've got to make it happen. Now, this other spot here is going to be for the small businesses. They get until October 1st, which I'm going to be very clear on this. This is going to be huge for many of the seasonal businesses that they don't have to do this until October 1st, which is going to let them get through this tourist season, right? This travel season, with all of our visitors without having to provide that. Should they provide it? Of course. Absolutely. Should be give your people sick time. That's silly not to. But they're going to have many that are not going to do it. And what I would expect to see, and this is what I'm advising a lot of my clients and also entrepreneurs who are looking to get into business, that I would expect, I would expect there's going to be another round of 30% of current businesses that close up shop after September 30th this year. I really do. After the 30th of September, I'm expecting a large number of businesses just to close because their business model doesn't allow them to is not going to allow them to be able to operate by giving people 5 days of sick time. It's just not something that they're going to be able to do. So, if you want to get into business in the retail space in this, in this tourist industry, you're going to the market's going to be primed for new folks to get in. Specifically, you have a new business, you're going to get a 3-year grace period to implement this. So, I expect turnover to happen. The other side here, that again, when I'm talking with my clients and when we talk about the 7-day notice for foreseeable, I mean, that's just professional courtesy. That's really all that is. If you have a wedding that you know is going to be taking place in a month or two, you need to give your boss notice that you're going to be taking your time, taking your time off. Like that's what we're looking for. Planned absences, we want you to schedule them appropriately. And then the employees, again, that for unforeseeable circumstances, which are things that are going to be specifically outlined in the employee handbook, like you will outline what that means. We just want folks to notify them, period. And again, what that is, that gets rid of one of the concerns with people taking time off, right, for their paid sick time. It was in the law, it was going to be 72 hours. You did not have to notify your employer for 3 days that you were sick. You could just not show up to work. And I don't care what world you live in, as professional courtesy, as you as an employee to the employer, you need to be able to say as soon as possible, let them know, hey, I'm out sick. Like that's not too much to ask, frankly. And I did not agree, and I didn't frankly care for that line of reasoning. Like I don't have to call it. No, that's a bunch of crap. Right? Grow up a little bit. Then we talk about the minimum wage piece here. Again, that's something that, again, minimum wage exists. It's there. And again, it's for businesses to be able to have a baseline to budget, something to measure against. None of my clients pay minimum wage. Like very, very few clients of mine pay minimum wage on anything, even for their tipped wages. They pay over and above, because that's frankly just the way that the folks that I work with tend to operate. You know, they want to make sure that their folks, that their employees aren't concerned with Maslow's hierarchy of need, which at the bottom is food, water, clothing, shelter. They make sure that they have everything they need to be stable when it comes to that. And it's one of the reasons I pick the people that I do to work with. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. So with this, okay, Ryan, you've been talking for a bit here. What else you got to say? And this is going to be where my warning is to the rest of the country. Those states that do not have anything similar to this or have any outlook of this. It's coming. It's absolutely coming. The labor industry, the labor lobby groups have identified this as something that they're going to be going after. Good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is. They're going to be chasing after it. So you can expect them to take what they've learned from here and what legislative successes they've gotten, and they're going to continue to apply this at other states and going to move the legislatures to enact and update these things for the labor laws. It's just what's going to end up happening here. You know, a lot in this. So what I would say, businesses, try to get out in front of this. Worst case scenario is you are an employer of choice and you are out front on this, and you get to be more selective of who you're going to be hiring because you are offering benefits above and beyond what is mandated. Also, knowing this is coming, as I mentioned, we've got businesses that are going to go out of business here later this year because they can't adapt. You have time to start adapting your business model now. Get out in front of this, folks. As a business owner, I prepare for this to happen. And a lot of businesses, like in a lot of places, states, this has already happened, and it's a little bit more, I want to say extreme, but I mean by on the extremes as far as on the spectrum. You know, this is already, there's even more of this in other states. So Michigan is one of those spots that it was a testing ground for a reason, because we're pretty purple in the way that we operate. And this is one of those things where, yeah, they've got some successes, so it's coming your way. So I'm advising everyone that I know, every business owner I talk to, everyone that I happen to have a conversation with, get out in front of this. If you can start adjusting your business model with the idea that you're going to have to provide paid time off for sickness, that you are going to have to, if you're in the tipped wage environment, you are going to have to pay a tipped wage that is 50% of the minimum wage or higher. Start thinking about how you would run your business this way and start making adjustments. The worst case scenario, folks, is that you find some more efficiencies and effectiveness and you're able to save some money. Just FYI, like before you have to implement it. There's that other side too. But again, as soon as you can, you should be paying your folks a higher wage because they're providing for you and your family as well. So, all right. So with that, again, thanks for everybody who hung out this long. Again, I appreciate it. Hopefully I earned your subscription today. If you'd like to learn more about how I help businesses grow faster than you ever thought possible, be sure to check out summitbusinessguides.com. Take care, and I will see you later.